Have you ever stopped and wondered why some people just seem to glide through really tough situations, with this sort of grace, while others, even really smart, talented folks, seem to get completely overwhelmed?
Yeah, it's a great question. And often the difference isn't about raw intelligence like IQ. It's something else, something we call emotional intelligence or EQ.
Exactly, EQ. We hear a lot about IQ, but maybe EQ is the real catalyst for success in, well, pretty much everything.
I think that's right. We often measure success by knowledge, sure, but how we handle ourselves, our inner world, and how we connect with the people around us. That's often the true game changer.
Totally. So if you've ever felt that gap between knowing what you should do when things get emotional and what you actually end up doing,
Or if you just want to, deepen your relationships or make a bigger impact.
then this deep dive is definitely for you.
Absolutely.
Today, we're really digging into the power of emotional intelligence and those crucial social skills. We've pulled apart this really comprehensive audiobook transcript.
Yeah, trying to grab the most valuable nuggets, not just dry definitions, but things you can actually use. Actionable insights, and maybe a few surprising facts, too.
Right? Our mission here is pretty simple.
Mm.
Help you become more self-aware, more empathetic, and yeah, ultimately more in control of your own emotional life,
Mm.
turning theory into something real.
So let's start with the basics. What is emotional intelligence, really? At its core, EQ is your ability to first recognize and understand your own emotions,
Okay.
and then, crucially, to manage them effectively. But it doesn't stop there. It's also about tuning into, understanding, and even influencing the emotions of other people.
So it's not about not having feelings.
No, not at all. It's about navigating them skillfully, using them in a way that benefits you and, those around you.
And the immediate payoff for having higher EQ, what does that look like day to day?
Well, it's pretty profound, actually. Think about facing a really tight deadline or maybe a difficult conversation. Instead of feeling that knot of anxiety tightening or that flash of anger taking over, EQ gives you that ability to just pause, to take a breath maybe, and then choose how you want to respond rather than just reacting on autopilot.
That sounds like a superpower, honestly. Just being able to choose instead of being swept away.
It really can feel like one, and it goes way beyond just managing yourself. A huge part of EQ is empathy.
Ah, empathy. We hear that word a lot.
We do, and it's this fundamental ability to genuinely see things from someone else's perspective, to kind of step into their shoes and understand their experience.
Which is essential for...
For everything relational, building strong, trusting connections, communicating in a way that actually lands, resolving conflict smoothly, even constructively. It's like the glue that holds interactions together.
Okay, and here's something I find really encouraging. EQ isn't fixed, right? It's not like your height or eye color that you're just stuck with.
Exactly. That's a common misconception, but the science, especially neuroscience, is showing us pretty clearly that our brains are adaptable. We can literally rewire them to get better at processing emotions at any point in life.
So it's a skill you can develop, like learning an instrument or a language.
Precisely. It's dynamic. You can actively work on it, improve it, and see real positive changes ripple out into every part of your life, your decisions, your relationships, your results.
So to get a better handle on it, how do we break EQ down? Is there a model?
Yeah, the model that really gained traction, thanks largely to psychologist Daniel Goleman, breaks EQ into 5 core components. Think of them as building blocks.
Okay, what are they? First, self-awareness.
Yeah.
Then self-regulation. Third is motivation. Fourth is empathy, which we just touched on. And fifth is social skills.
Self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, social skills. Got it. And they all work together.
Absolutely interconnected. You can't really excel in one without the others. Like, how can you regulate an emotion if you aren't even aware you're feeling it in the first place? Self-awareness underpins self-regulation.
Makes sense. And this isn't just, pop psychology, is it? There's research behind this. Oh, definitely. There's a huge body of research. Study after study shows that people with higher EQ tend to have better mental health outcomes, stronger relationships, more career success.
Right.
Goleman even argued quite convincingly that EQ is often a better predictor of life success than traditional IQ, especially when it comes to dealing with stress, making good decisions under pressure, navigating life's complexities.
Wow. Okay, so it's not just a nice to have, it's pretty fundamental.
It really is a non-negotiable skill for thriving, I'd say.
All right, let's dive into that first component then, self-awareness. You called it the cornerstone. What does that really mean in practice?
Think about those mornings. You wake up and you just feel off. agitated, maybe a bit restless,
Uh-huh.
but you can't immediately say why.
Yep, definitely had those.
Right. And if you don't tune in, that vague feeling can just hijack your whole day. You might snap at someone, make a rash decision,
Hmm.
all because of this undercurrent you haven't identified.
Okay, so the alternative is,
The alternative is pausing, even just for a moment, taking a breath and asking, okay, what am I feeling right now? Recognizing it, maybe it's frustration about that upcoming project or lingering annoyance from yesterday.
so naming it.
Naming it, observing it without immediate judgment,
Hmm.
and maybe understanding the trigger, that shift from being run by the feeling to understanding it and then choosing your next move. That's self-awareness right there.
So it's recognizing emotions as they happen, understanding the why behind them, and seeing how they're coloring your thoughts and actions.
Exactly. And it's not just about the big dramatic emotions, it's the subtle stuff too. Noticing that slight tension in your shoulders or that fleeting thought, observing without getting swept away.
And why is this the absolute foundation? You said the other parts depend on it.
Because everything else builds on it.
Hmm.
You can't manage your anger if you don't realize you're angry until you've already yelled, right? You can't truly empathize with someone else's sadness if you're completely disconnected from your own feelings. Self-awareness gives you that internal compass. It helps you understand your values, your strengths, your weak spots, which leads to better choices, clearer communication, more constructive conflict handling.
Okay, sold. It's crucial. So how do we actually get better at it? What are some practical steps?
One really powerful tool is journaling. Just dedicating a few minutes each day to write down your thoughts, your feelings. No need for perfect prose.
Just getting it out.
Just getting it out,
Yeah.
reflecting on emotional moments from the day. What happened? How did I feel? How did I react? What patterns do I notice? Maybe certain situations or people consistently trigger specific feelings. That gives you foresight.
That makes sense. Tracking patterns. What else?
Mindfulness is huge. It's essentially the practice of paying attention to the present moment on purpose, without judgment.
So when a strong emotion comes up,
Instead of instantly reacting, you just observe it. Notice the physical sensations: chest tight, jaw clenched. Then ask those curious questions. Why this feeling now? What might I need? It creates a little space between you and the emotion.
finding that pause again.
Exactly. Another really valuable, though sometimes uncomfortable method is getting feedback.
From other people.
Yeah, asking people you trust, friends, family, maybe colleagues, for their honest take on how you come across emotionally. We all have blind spots. They might see patterns in your reactions that you're completely unaware of.
Ooh, that takes courage. But I can see how valuable it would be.
Definitely. And then there are simpler things like quick emotional check-ins, just pausing a few times during the day, maybe when you wake up, before lunch, end of the workday, and asking, how am I feeling right now?
It's a quick scan.
Quick stand. It builds that muscle of real-time awareness so you can notice things early before they escalate.
Okay. And you mentioned values. How does that connect?
Self-awareness isn't just about fleeting moods. It's also about understanding what fundamentally matters to you, your core values, what principles guide your life.
Yeah.
Knowing these helps you make decisions that feel authentic, that align with who you want to be. Living in line with your values brings a deeper sense of fulfillment and emotional congruence.
So self-awareness is knowing what's going on inside. Then self-regulation. That's about managing it.
Precisely. If awareness is seeing the wave, regulation is deciding how to surf it rather than getting wiped out.
I like that analogy.
Think about that work meeting again. Someone says something that just pushes your buttons, the old, you might have fired back instantly, right?
Yeah.
Gotten defensive.
Guilty as charged sometime.
We've all been there. But with self-regulation, you feel that initial surge, frustration, maybe anger, but you don't act on it immediately. You pause, breathe. You acknowledge the feeling, but you choose a calmer, more constructive response. You steer the conversation back purposefully.
So it's controlling the response, not necessarily the initial feeling.
Exactly. It's about managing your emotional reactions, especially when things are stressful or challenging, so you can respond effectively, thoughtfully. It's not about suppressing feelings that's unhealthy. It's about managing the expression of those feelings, controlling impulses, avoiding outbursts that damage things.
Keeping your emotions from hijacking your brain, basically.
That's a great way to put it. Even positive emotions like excitement need regulation sometimes so they don't lead to impulsive decisions we regret later.
Why is this so important, beyond just not yelling in meetings?
Well, it allows you to stay aligned with your goals and values even when things get heated. You're choosing your path, not being dictated to by momentary feelings. For leaders, it's absolutely critical making clear decisions under pressure.
Right.
And personally, it strengthens relationships massively. You can respond with empathy and understanding even when you disagree or feel hurt, rather than just reacting defensively.
And mental health. Does it play a role there?
Huge role. Chronic stress, anxiety, anger, if they run unchecked, they take a serious toll. Self-regulation skills help you manage these difficult states much more effectively, reducing their negative impact and building your overall emotional resilience. You bounce back faster.
Okay, so how do we get better at this? What are the techniques?
The simplest, yet maybe most powerful, is just practicing the pause, that tiny gap between stimulus and response. When you feel triggered, intentionally take a beat. Breathe deeply. Count to 5, even. It creates space for conscious choice.
Just that micro pause.
It can change everything. Another technique is reframing your thoughts. Remember, it's often our interpretation of an event, not the event itself, that drives the emotion.
Like the traffic example, instead of, what a jerk, maybe they're rushing to the hospital.
Exactly, or maybe they just made a mistake. By consciously choosing a less emotionally charged interpretation, you can dial down the intensity of your feeling.
That takes practice, I imagine.
It does. And when emotions feel really overwhelming, grounding techniques are fantastic. Focus on physical sensations right here, right now. Feel your feet flat on the floor. Notice the texture of your chair. Listen to the sounds around you. It pulls you out of the emotional storm in your head and back into the present.
Anchoring yourself.
Precisely. And underlying all of this is deepening that emotional awareness we talked about, recognizing the early warning signs.
Like the tight chest or clenched jaw.
Yeah. The sooner you notice those physical cues, the sooner you can intervene with the pause or reframing or grounding before the emotion completely takes over.
And what about long-term strategies?
Building regular stress relief practices into your life is key. Things like deep breathing exercises, meditation, regular physical activity, they don't just help in the moment, they build your baseline resilience over time.
So it's like training.
It is, and developing healthy coping strategies for when difficult emotions do arise. Talking to a friend, journaling, engaging in a hobby you love, spending time in nature, finding constructive outlets instead of letting things fester or resorting to unhealthy coping mechanisms.
Okay, self-awareness, self-regulation. Next up was motivation. This feels a bit different. How does it fit into EQ?
It's the engine. Think about it.
Yeah.
You can be aware of your feelings, you can regulate them, but if you don't have the drive to actually do anything to pursue your goals, then the insight doesn't translate into action.
Okay, so motivation is the fuel.
Exactly. It's that emotional push that moves you from thinking about something to taking concrete steps towards it. It's the energy behind achieving things.
And are there different kinds of motivation?
Broadly, yes. We often talk about intrinsic versus extrinsic,
Intrinsic,
which comes
yeah.
from within. You do something because you find it inherently interesting, enjoyable, or fulfilling. Like painting because you love the creative process, not because you expect to sell it.
And extrinsic.
That's driven by external factors. Seeking rewards, like a bonus or promotion, or avoiding punishment, like getting reprimanded for being late.
Which one is better?
Well, extrinsic can work for short-term goals, definitely. But intrinsic motivation, that internal drive, is far more powerful and sustainable for long-term success and genuine satisfaction. It taps into what truly matters to you.
So motivation connects emotional control with actually getting things done in the world.
Perfectly put, it bridges that gap. Without it, self-awareness and self-regulation might just lead to, well, calm inaction. Motivation provides the forward thrust, fuels persistence when things get tough, and helps maintain that positive outlook needed to overcome obstacles.
Is there any science behind what drives motivation?
Oh, yeah. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a classic framework here. It suggests we're motivated by fulfilling different levels of needs, from basic survival and safety.
Food, shelter.
Right. Up through belonging and love, esteem and respect, and ultimately self-actualization, reaching your full potential, living a meaningful life.
So tapping into that higher level.
Tapping into that drive for growth and meaning, aligning your goals with that sense of purpose, tends to create the most powerful and lasting motivation. It's not just about checking boxes. It's about becoming who you want to be.
So how do we cultivate that kind of deep, lasting motivation, especially when it feels like it's flagging?
First, set goals that are really clear, but also genuinely meaningful to you. They need to resonate with your values. Get fit is okay, but exercise 3 times a week to have more energy for my kids, that has an emotional hook.
Find your why.
Exactly. Connect the goal to that deeper purpose. Why does this matter? What bigger picture does it serve? That why is what pulls you through when things get difficult.
What about big, intimidating goals?
Write them down. Overwhelm kills motivation. If write a novel feels huge, focus on write 500 words today. Small, manageable steps build momentum and create a sense of progress.
Ah, progress. That feels good.
It does, which is why celebrating your progress is so important. Acknowledge the small wins. Finished a tough chapter, nailed that presentation. Take a moment to recognize it. It reinforces the positive behavior and keeps you going.
Like giving yourself a little reward.
Could be. Or just acknowledging the effort. And finally, accountability helps a lot.
Telling someone else?
Yeah. Sharing your goals with someone you trust, a friend, mentor, coach, creates a sense of commitment. Knowing someone might ask you about it can be surprisingly motivating, especially on days when your internal drive is low.
Okay, that makes sense. Motivation is the engine. Now let's circle back to empathy. You called it the heart of EQ earlier.
I think it really is. Imagine a friend telling you about something tough they're going through. You're not just listening to the words.
You're trying to feel what they feel.
Exactly. You're trying to step into their world for a moment, connect with the emotion behind the story. It's not just understanding about their pain or joy, it's resonating with it. When that happens, the other person feels truly seen, truly understood.
That's powerful. So empathy is understanding and sharing the feelings.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Stepping into their frame of reference, seeing the world through their lens, and connecting emotionally, it goes beyond just intellectual understanding.
Are there different flavors of empathy?
There are. Often it's broken down into three types. First, cognitive empathy.
Which is?
The intellectual part. Understanding someone's perspective, their thoughts, how they see things. Really useful in, say, negotiations or strategy.
Okay.
Emotional empathy. This is where you actually feel with the other person. You mirror their emotions, feel their sadness, share their excitement. This creates that strong emotional connection, that bond.
That's not fair.
Compassionate empathy. This takes it a step further. You understand, you feel with them, and it moves you to act, to help, to support, to alleviate their suffering or contribute to their happiness. It's empathy in action.
Why is empathy so central to EQ overall?
Because it fundamentally shapes how we connect, how we communicate, how we navigate the social world. It's the bedrock of trust. When people feel genuinely understood by you, they open up, they collaborate, they connect.
In the workplace.
Oh, huge. Empathetic leaders are far better at motivating teams, resolving conflicts constructively, creating inclusive cultures where people feel valued. It's a massive differentiator.
How does it directly improve communication? Because sometimes we think we're communicating, but it falls flat.
Right. Because effective communication isn't just about transmitting information, it's about ensuring understanding, and that requires empathy. A key part is active listening.
Really tuning in.
Fully tuning in, giving your complete attention, not interrupting, listening to grasp their meaning and feeling, not just waiting for your turn to talk or planning your rebuttal.
What else?
Reflecting and validating emotions. When someone shares a feeling, acknowledging it shows you've heard and understood, saying things like, "It sounds like that was really frustrating," or "I can see how happy that makes you." It validates their experience.
Makes them feel heard.
Exactly. And don't underestimate nonverbal communication. Your body language, leaning in slightly, nodding, maintaining eye contact. Your tone of voice, these things shout empathy, or the lack of it, louder than words sometimes.
So how do we get better at empathy? It sounds crucial, but maybe tricky to cultivate.
Start with that active listening piece. Make a conscious effort. When someone's talking, quiet your own mental chatter. Focus entirely on them, their words, tone, body language. Ask clarifying questions aimed at understanding their experience better.
Practice putting yourself in their shoes.
Regularly, make it a mental exercise. If I had their background, their pressures, their experiences, how might I feel in this situation? It stretches your perspective.
What about reading people?
Develop your ability to observe nonverbal cues. Faces, posture, tone of voice often tell a story words don't. Learn to pick up on those subtle signals of emotion.
And keeping an open mind.
Crucial. Be willing to accept that someone else's perspective is valid for them, even if it's totally different from yours. Suspend judgment. Seek first to understand, as the saying goes.
Anything else?
Be willing to share your own vulnerability appropriately. Empathy thrives in environments of mutual trust. When you're open about your own feelings sometimes, it creates safety for others to do the same, deepening the connection. It becomes a two-way street.
Okay, empathy is the heart. What about the last piece? social skills? How does that fit in?
Social skills are where rubber meets the road. If the other components are internal awareness, regulation, motivation, empathy, social skills are how you bring all of that out into your interactions with other people effectively.
So the practical application.
Exactly. It's the set of behaviors and strategies you use to connect, communicate, influence, and navigate relationships harmoniously. Think about people who are great networkers, smooth negotiators, or just really good at making others feel comfortable. They have strong social skills.
Reading the room, knowing what to say.
Reading the room, understanding social cues, responding appropriately, building rapport, handling disagreements constructively. It's the outward expression of your inner emotional intelligence.
And why are they critical for EQ? It seems obvious, but spell it out.
Because they translate everything else into tangible results. You can be self-aware and empathetic, but if you can't communicate that effectively or handle a conflict well, the impact is limited. Social skills allow you to build strong relationships, collaborate successfully, lead effectively, and influence positively. They make your EQ work in the world.
What are the key components within social skills?
Effective communication is a big one, obviously. And again, it's more than just talking clearly. It's active listening, understanding nonverbal cues, adapting your style to your audience, being persuasive without being manipulative.
Conflict resolution comes up again.
It's huge in social skills. Conflict is normal, even healthy sometimes. But how you handle it is key. Staying calm, focusing on the issue, not the person, seeking win-win solutions, acknowledging the other person's perspective, these are vital skills.
Building trust seems important here, too.
Absolutely. Building rapport and trust. This comes down to being authentic, reliable, doing what you say you'll do, and showing genuine interest in other people. Asking about them, remembering details, being present.
In influencing others.
Yes,
Yeah.
influence and persuasion. But ethically. It's not about tricking people. It's about understanding their needs, finding common ground, presenting ideas compellingly, inspiring action, and using positive reinforcement. Leading change effectively relies heavily on these skills.
Okay, so we've covered the 5 components.
Yeah.
How do they all weave together in, actual real life?
Great question. They don't operate in isolation. They're constantly interacting. Let's take a workplace example.
Okay.
An emotionally intelligent manager uses self-awareness to notice their own stress levels rising during a busy period. They use self-regulation to manage that stress so they don't snap at their team. They use empathy to recognize that their team members are also feeling pressured. They use social skills to communicate clearly about priorities, offer support, maybe adjust workloads where possible, and use motivation, perhaps tapping into the team's shared purpose to keep morale up. See how they all play together.
Yeah, that paints a clear picture. What about handling conflict at work?
Same interplay. Imagine mediating between 2 colleagues. You need self-regulation to stay calm yourself, empathy to understand both perspectives, active listening, a social skill, to ensure both feel heard, then more social skills to guide them towards a solution, focusing on common ground.
It turns a potentially damaging situation into something constructive.
Exactly. Or think about customer service. Dealing with an angry customer requires immense self-regulation not to get defensive, empathy to understand their frustration, I can see why you're upset, and social skills to communicate effectively, validate their feelings, and find a resolution.
Makes sense. What about outside of work, personal relationships?
EQ is arguably even more critical there. In a romantic relationship, self-awareness helps you understand your own needs and triggers. Self-regulation stops you from saying hurtful things in the heat of the moment. Empathy helps you understand your partner's perspective, even during disagreements. And social skills enable you to communicate vulnerably and listen effectively.
Asking those open-ended questions like, help me understand how you're feeling.
Precisely. It fosters intimacy and prevents misunderstandings from festering. Same applies to family dynamics. Think about those potentially tense family gatherings.
Oh, yeah.
Using EQ means recognizing rising tensions, self-awareness, empathy, managing your own reactions, self-regulation, and using social skills to maybe gently redirect conversations or ensure everyone feels heard, creating a more harmonious atmosphere.
And friendships.
Yeah.
Supporting a friend through a tough time.
Empathy is key there. Knowing when to just listen, when to offer advice, if asked, validating their feelings, that sounds incredibly difficult. Self-regulation prevents you from making it about your experiences. Social skills guide how you offer comfort and support authentically, just being present.
Even just daily life, minor stresses.
Absolutely. Getting stuck in traffic. Instead of fuming, poor self-regulation, you use self-awareness to notice the irritation. Maybe practice a little mindfulness or reframing, oh, extra podcast time. It stops small hassles from ruining your day.
Or even just small talk.
Yeah. Being aware of social cues, part of social skills, informed by empathy, adjusting your tone and body language, showing genuine interest. It makes even brief interactions more positive and connecting.
So the long-term payoff for cultivating all this, it sounds pretty significant.
It really is profound. In your career, we're talking better leadership, smarter decisions because you consider the emotional landscape, smoother conflict resolution, much greater resilience to setbacks. People with high EQ tend to advance further and faster.
And
Deeper, more meaningful relationships. Communication becomes easier, richer. Conflict is handled more constructively. You experience more empathy, more compassion, both giving and receiving. You're better at setting healthy boundaries.
and mental well-being.
Big impact. Lower stress and anxiety because you manage emotions better. More resilience when facing adversity. Better regulation of difficult feelings like anger or sadness. And often improved self-esteem because you feel more capable and connected.
So wrapping this up, we've walked through these 5 pillars: self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. They all fit together.
They really do, like pieces of a puzzle forming a complete picture of emotional competence.
And the key takeaway seems to be that this isn't just something you get and you're done.
Absolutely not. It's a lifelong practice, a journey, not a destination. Like physical fitness, you have to keep working at it. But the good news is, the more you practice, the more intuitive and natural it becomes. It gets integrated into who you are.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening.
Yeah, consider this. What if, just for this next week, you picked one specific skill we talked about and really focused on practicing it in those challenging moments?
Like just the pause, taking that breath before reacting.
Could be, or maybe committing to truly active listening in your next important conversation, focusing only on understanding the other person. It doesn't have to be massive overhaul.
Small steps.
Small, consistent, intentional steps. Because mastery here isn't about one heroic act of emotional control. It's about those tiny shifts, practiced daily, that gradually ripple outwards, creating real, lasting change, more success, more joy, more connection, more fulfillment in your life.